Mr. Ivey, I'm going to pick on you just for a minute because you're well reasoned. I listened to a lot of your debate, and I think it's I hear someone that's really stepping into what does the law say, what does what does the court proceeding say. And so I took note a while ago when you talked about that the Supreme Court, quote, has yielded to the executive what to enforce and how to enforce it. And I just step back as someone who does not have a Juris Doctorate. And I think about that. I just think about that statement for what to enforce and how to enforce it. For all of us that know that we did not have a king implemented in our governance, that's really what we're doing when we allow that ideology to be pervasive. To allow the executive on how to enforce it and what to enforce, you've granted them the ability to become a king, and that flies in the face of what all of us. I think that transcends party politics. We taught the Constitution. We do not have a king. And think about what John Adams said. John Adams, that great statement, he said, we are to be a government of law, not of men. What's he talking about? He's talking about the rule of law. Think about what his cousin, Samuel Adams, said, that neither the wisest constitution nor the wisest of laws will secure the liberty and happiness of a people whose manners are universally corrupt. So what we're talking about here, and don't you think it's quite ironic? We're going to go through these procedural hurdles all day long today, and I respect that. You have the right to use the rules and to bog this process down. But we're using the dot and tittle, making sure we adhere to it, and that will be respected by the chairman. But think about what we're doing. We're defending someone who refuses to adhere to the dots and tittles, who refuses to play by the rules. And so that Alanis Morissette song in my youth is coming up. Isn't it ironic, don't you think? This is about the rule of law in this country. And when we in a moment, when we move to a place to where we're willing to say that we're going to yield to the executive to determine what to enforce and how to enforce, regardless if they adhere to, they're not just violating the will of Congress, they're violating your congressional membership. Because you are the voice of we the people. And when we pass laws and we have bureaucracies that don't follow it, guys, what are we up here for? What are we up here for other than to maintain a position? And I want to finally end with this. Jefferson has an incredible statement, Thomas Jefferson. And he writes this in 1820, and he says to this gentleman, he said, you, sir, are basically asserting that the judges are the ultimate arbitrator of all constitutional questions. Then he goes on to say, that is a dangerous doctrine indeed. And it would lead us to the despotism of an oligarchy. You know what despotism is? Because I had to look it up. It means absent the control of men. Why are we in the Constitution 3,000 words or 2,000 words, and the executive is only 1,000 words? Because they understood the weight need to be left to the legislative body as the voice of we the people. It's a dangerous doctrine when the simplicity of this is we pass laws, they have to be followed, and then we have any ideology that creeps in and says, let them interpret how they want to. It's a dangerous doctrine indeed. And with that, I yield, Mr.